بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله على نعمة الإسلام وكفى بها نعمة. الحمد لله على منة الولاية وكفى بها منا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. أشهد أن سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا النبي المؤيد والرسول المسدد والمصطفى الأمجد والمحمود الأحمد حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. سفن النجاة الأعلام من ركب سفينتهم نجا ومن تخلف عنها هلك وغلب. ثم أما بعد. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Of course, we are continuing from where we left from. And just to recap on the last point I spoke about, I said, just to refresh your mind, I said to be little more elaborate about the analogy I gave between the question of the employee in relation to his employer in regard to how important it is we relate to these 5 usul of deen. I said to be a little more elaborate, it may be said that we require religion and spirituality which are represented in the 5 usul of religion, i.e. Tawheed, justice, prophethood, imamah and ma'ad, or resurrection, or day of judgment, for the following reason. And the reason number 1 is that religion and this usul, if you relate to them from the proper perspective, they will give a sanction for the principles of morality. The first thing that will come to mind now in the mind of most of our youth are, I can make my own standard of moralities. I am fit enough to make these morality standards. Well, let's see if you are or if you're not, or if we are or if we're not able to derive these moral standards on our own. Why I say that? Because religion provides a sanction for the principles of morality such as justice, honesty, righteousness, brotherhood, equality, virtuousness, tolerance, sacrifice, help to the needy, and other kindred virtues. However, these are the virtues without which not only our life will lose its order and normalcy, but it is very likely to be turned into chaos. Of course, it is possible to acquire these moral and social qualities without the aid of religion, as someone or some people may argue, but certainly in the absence of firm religious belief, these values appear to lose their meaning and become a series of mere unbinding recommendations. Who will bind you to be just, to be righteous, to be considerate, to be obedient? No one can force you. Not even the law of the land can force you to be that, unless there is a belief system in what you do, and there is a backing to what you believe in to keep you on the right track. Because the minute the law disappears, you are at liberty to continue with these moral standards or to put them on hold, because you know for certain there is no one to watch after you or over you. The law is gone, the authority is no longer in place. And that's why you find sometimes in many of the life we encounter challenges. In these challenges, whether these challenges come from a set of law which are man-made or otherwise, you find people wait for the opportunity to find a loophole to penetrate the system they are living under, because they cannot bear that authority anymore. Why? Not because the law sometimes is bad, because they themselves find that they are not bound by that law, because there is nothing to connect them to that law. And the only thing that connects you to that law is that item or article of belief in a sovereign God, in a sovereign authority that is capable and knowing you from within as he is able to know you from without. But certainly, as I said before, in the absence of firm religious belief, these values appear to lose their meaning and become a series of mere unbinding recommendation, because in such a case, they do not amount to more than a piece of advice from a close friend in respect to which we are at full liberty to accept them or reject them. These qualities are rather based on an internal feeling and faith and are naturally beyond the scope of ordinary law. It is only faith in the existence of an eternal being who knows man equally from within and without, and who has full control over him, that cultivates that virtues within man and impels him to automatic righteousness and adherence to duty. The well-known philosopher and historian Will Durant says in his book Pleasures of Philosophy that without the backing of religion, morality is nothing more than a rationalization, as without it, the sense of obligation disappears. You can rationalize righteousness, but when righteousness works against you, you are not impelled to follow it. For example, I'll give you an example, where sometimes if we feel something working against us, we will surrender and turn against our own principles. When we find that in a matter of law, the law is in my favor, I will stick to it. But when the law works against me, right, I am willing to abandon the law because now I don't want to surrender to the law. But when that item of law is from Allah, and you know that Allah is forever watching over you, then you are not at liberty to abandon it, because you know you will be accountable to it. And there is a time that we call ma'ad, where you will come back to it and you will be called to account as to how you have forfeited your duty before that eternal God who made you bound by these laws that you should abide by due to that faith system that you have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or with that creator. Number two, power to endure adversities of life. Religion provides power for facing adversities and serves as a bulwark against undesirable reactions of despair and hopelessness. A religious person, and when I speak about religious person, brothers and sisters, please remember one thing. I'm not talking about a religious person that who prays and fasts only. No, a religious person who lives his faith 24/7 of his life. Yani he become an incarnate of the moral that we call Islam. Look at Imam Ali, for example. He said, لَأُسَالِمَنَّ مَا سَلِمَتْ أُمُورُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ وَإِنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ بِهَا إِلَّا جَوْرٌ عَلَيَّ خَاصًّا. He said, even if I have to endure all the problems of suppression, of being removed from my position, of denying me the ability to govern, I will sustain all the injuries personally as long as Islam will remain intact. That is faith. That is tawheed. That is when you put the interest of the majority over the interest of the individual or the minority, right? In order to keep that faith in place. Even when your right is being suppressed, you don't call for it back. And there is a classic example of that. Imam Ali was asked, when you became Amir al-Mu'mineen in your government, why didn't you return Fadak to its rightful heirs? Because Amir al-Mu'mineen didn't do it. He didn't claim Fadak back, right? He kept it the way it is. So people ask him, you are in power now, Fadak is your wives, so her children are more deserving of it than anyone else. Look what he said. He said, whatever is taken from us, the family of the Prophet, against our will, we don't claim it back until God becomes our arbitrator on the Day of Judgment. Full stop. We don't compromise on our principles, even if the authority is with us. Now tell me something. If someone recommended this principle to you, are you bound to follow it? No. It's the belief system that compels you to follow such a system, because your heart is now linked to your Creator, and you don't want to feel the separation between the cause, which is Allah, and the effect, which is you. Allah gave you or brought you into this life because of His demand and because of His order, subhanahu wa ta'ala. A religious person, we know who he is, right? Not every Tom, Dick and Harry. Like Imam Hussein sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, إن الدين لاحق على ألسن الناس ما ضرت معايشهم فإنهم محسوا قل الديان. Religion, sometimes the common religion, the common religion, the religion of the man on the street that Imam Hussein is referring to, is what is something that people chew in their mouth. For as long as their personal affairs are being protected, then they will remain religious. But when they are put to a test or a trial, only few religious people will come out safe and sound from the trial. Why? Because to them it's not a matter of compromise. It's not a matter of compromise. I will remain religious regardless of the consequences. And normally we mention the story of Har in Karbala. And you know, the way we mention the story of Har, it's like sipping water. You know, Har came, he found himself giving an option between Jannah and Nar, so he chose Jannah over Nar. Is it that simple? It is not that simple. When his friend looks at him and says, Wallah, law qila li man ashja' ahli al-Kufa ma adawtuk. And Al-Hur was shaking on the 10th day, and he is the most fearsome warrior of the people of Kufa. He looks at his friend and he says, yes, you're right, I'm shaking. But do you know why I'm shaking? He says, no, I can't understand this reaction because you're a warrior. You should not be frightened when the swords come clashing down. He said, it is not that I'm frightened of. What I'm frightened of is that I'm giving myself a choice between hellfire and Jannah. And then he summed up the whole debate. حسم أمره الحر وقال والله لا أخير على الجنة شيئا آخر. I shall not give in place to Jannah anything else. He turned his horse and went back to Imam Hussein. But you know what that meant? It meant that you make a decision. The consequence of it is death. That's the challenge. Show me how many people, when they are given a challenge between death and life, they will choose death over life. That is faith, brothers and sisters. That is the usul, the tawheed that we need to have, so that when anyone comes to challenge us in university or college or in the street or on our value system or on our dress code, we will not compromise on anything because I have faith in the one that gave that system to me, and I appreciate that system that God gave to me. So a religious person, in that definition, with firm belief in God or Allah, does not find himself or herself in utter desperation, even in the worst moments of his or her life, because he knows or she knows well that he is or she is under the protection of a being who is called the Almighty Allah. With faith in the fact that every problem can be solved and every deadlock can be resolved with Allah's help, he or she can overcome every disappointment and hopelessness. For this very reason, it is very seldom happens that a truly religious person suffers from acute reactions of desperation like suicide, nervous breakdown, or psychic ailment, which are products of frustration and defeatism. And not only that, the Holy Quran comes to tell us this. He says, surely those who are close to Allah have no fear, nor shall they grieve. They will not grieve. They will not grieve in Surah Yunus, verse 62. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq has an interesting hadith or narration. He says what? A true believer can never commit or even entertain the thought of committing suicide. That's a true believer. It's like, you know, I don't know if I told you this story. I was going in a lift in Dubai once, and there was a sign. You know that sign which has the red circle, and there is a cigarette inside it, and there is a line which means no smoking, right? In that lift, they didn't say no smoking. They wrote, even thinking about smoking in this lift is not allowed. Can you imagine? So the Imam is saying, a true believer does not even think in that direction. in the direction of what? Of giving up. Because a believer does not despair from the mercy of Allah. The mercy of Allah, which is precedent to His anger. As I said yesterday in my speech at Hakaranga, I said, Allah said, "Sabaqat rahmati ghadabi." Allah's mercy precedes and overwhelms His anger. Why? Because He has identified Himself as Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the merciful, the most merciful. The merciful, the most merciful. And Moses, Salamullah alayhi, once he had a problem where the sky will not give rain. So he went out with Bani Israel in the desert, 40,000 of them. He said, Ya Allah, we need rain or these people will die. He said, I don't give you rain until there is one person among the Israelites who is committing so much sins. Ask him to pull out. So Musa, that's an order from Allah. He said, listen guys, of course he's not saying that, I'm saying that, all right? But something to that effect, all right? So Moses comes to the Israelites and says, listen guys, Allah will not give us rain until there is one of you who is committing major sins against Allah, has to pull out of the crowd. So that person who's been committing the sin knew himself. Imagine the embarrassment of pulling out in front of 40,000 people. Imagine if 40,000 people are you are the culprit, you are the one who's preventing us from getting rain, then you get out, right? Look what happened. At that moment, this person turned to Allah, said, Ya Allah, for 40 years you've been protecting my integrity and honor. No one knew that I was a sinner. Now in front of all these people you want to reveal my identity? Tayyib, I make you witness that I repent from this minute. All of a sudden it started raining. No one came out from the crowd. It started raining. Moses said, what's this again? Of course he didn't say that. I said, what is this again? So he turned to Allah again. He said, Ya Allah, what happened? He said, Moses, this man, for 40 years I did not reveal his identity when he was a sinner. Now that he came back to me, you want me to reveal his identity to you? Are you kidding? The man reconciled with me. I conceal his mistakes. This is a God of Rahmah or a God of Adab? This is a God of Rahmah. This is a God who wants to appeal to His creation with His mercy. That I give you opportunity over an opportunity. Just come back to me and say and declare that I want to be with you, O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah will give you all the forgiveness that you want. Thus, religious faith is, on the one hand, a motivating force, and on the other, it is a factor which enables man to face hardships with courage and saves him or her from the ill effects of failure and disappointment. Following the downfall of the Nazis, Bernard Russell said this, said there exists a danger of intellectual and ideological revolt in Germany, but no doubt religion has been one of the biggest factors in that country's return to stability. That religion he's talking about is not the proper faith. But because there was some sort of faith in a creator, it brought the whole country to stability. Bernard Russell is saying this. Not, I don't know, someone from Monash University or the New Zealand University. This is a renowned authority on history and psychology and philosophy, says that what brought Germany to stability after Nazi Germany is that faith in an identity or a deity called God. According to Dr. Durant again, he says, behavior of a man who is not blessed with reliance on a faith suffers from special Epicurean confusion, and the life which has no comforting support of faith is an unbearable burden on the life of that individual. He feels frustrated easily. He cannot bear or sustain problems. He gives up on his or himself. And I told you last time when I came here, the amazing statistics that in the most affluent of societies, in Sweden is one of the most affluent of societies in terms of their income. Affluence in terms of monetary value. And that's what the world wants us to believe, that it is money that gives you comfort and happiness, right? Because through money you can get women, you can get drinking, you can get anything you want. You can have that sort of temporal or transitory happiness. But in Sweden they have the highest rate of suicide. But they have everything at their liberty at their hand, because they gave up on anything called God. Because Sweden is the most godless society in the world, followed by Australia, by the way. Can you believe it? When the Pope came, not this Pope Benedict, John Paul, when he came to Australia, he summoned all the archbishops of Australia from all the states. He said, the second godless society in the world that I have visited is Australia. Do something about it. They don't believe in anything called a deity of God, unfortunately. One of the most renowned psychologists in contemporary America today, his name is Thomas More, author of the best-selling book called Care of the Soul. Care of the Soul. Go and search it on Google, Hajj Google, Google, the best Hajj in the world for information. He says, great malady of the 20th century is loss of the soul. Loss of one's spirituality is the greatest illness that the world is suffering from in this world we are living in. According to two separate studies conducted by Duke University Center for Religion, Spirituality and Health, each involving 4,000 participants, it was found that those who consider themselves to lead spiritual lives tended to have immunity against lower blood pressure, half as likely to suffer from depression, and those who are not as those who are spiritual. And not only that, in fact, more than 250 studies at Yale, Dartmouth, and other universities have found that people with all sorts of spiritual belief benefit from one of the following: a stronger immune system, making them less prone to catch colds and develop other illnesses. Number two, lower rates of heart diseases, emphysema, diabetes, cancer and suicide. Number three, greater mental and physical ability to deal with illness and recover faster. Why is that? This is medical. I'm not talking about now anything to do with Quran. I'm not quoting the Quran. I'm quoting Thomas More, right? Who's a psychologist. Look what he says. He says, here is the answer by the world-renowned physicians, who says, during a stressful situation, the adrenal glands flood the body with chemicals that raise heart rate and blood pressure. Praying, meditating, and reading uplifting spiritual literature appears through the studies that was done on these people to lower those chemical levels and prevent stress from harming our bodies. Now, what does the Quran say about that? Listen to this. Allah said, verily in the remembrance of Allah, or verily the remembrance of Allah soothes the heart and fills it with tranquility and peace. ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. كل شيء بيرجع عن everything comes, you find someone stressing, بتقول له صلي على محمد وعلى اللهم صل على. If he gets his pain, someone is beating his face over at the death of his mother, تقول له طول بالك، الله كريم، الله كبير. راحت من دار العذاب إلى دار السعادة. صح. لا حول ولا قوة. يا الله، يا الله. بيروح. He settles down. He comes calm. He gets all the control over himself in that regard. Point number three, encounter with ideological vacuum, and this is one of the most important. Encounter with ideological vacuum. A human being cannot live in an ideological vacuum for long, and as such, his tendency towards a wrong ideology and false values will become definite. Yani, in the absence of a proper faith, you will turn to something, whatever you want to call it, in order to actually block or fill that religious or spiritual vacuum. Because when the soul leaves, you become neglected of it, it does not just disappear. It does not just go. It comes to haunt you back with different addictions. And you will see what I'm talking about. In his intellect, if a man's intellectual life is not filled with sound belief and healthy teachings, superstitions, and even destructive ideas may find way into his spiritual firmament and may forever pollute his cognizance to such an extent that he cannot even see what is right when it is right. Look what Allah says in regard to those who have knowledge, but even that knowledge cannot make them see right from wrong because they have neglected the belief in a proper system. Look what Allah says. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَنْ جَهْلٍ أَمْ عَنْ عِلْمٍ وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَنْ عِلْمٍ. Do you not see that who takes his vain glory as his own God by denying every other God, by denying the true God? He says, I am the God of the world. Through his action, of course, he doesn't declare it like this. He says, I set my own moralities. I know what is right and wrong for me. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. And he was misled on the basis of knowledge, not ignorance. Why? Because the knowledge that he has does not come from a proper source. The knowledge that he has affected his cognizance, that he cannot see right from wrong anymore. It is religion in its proper dimension which can fill the ideological and intellectual vacuum with sound teachings and can save one from a tendency towards absurdities and being irrational. Hence, true understanding of religion can play an important role in combating superstitions, though it is true that even religion itself sometimes, if not understood correctly, may promote superstitions. Now let us examine the words of Herbert Benson, a cardiologist at Harvard Medical School and chief of behavioral medicine at Deaconess Medical Center in Boston. He had this to say: spiritual belief is a powerful force, and doctors cannot afford to ignore it when 60 to 90% of patients' visits are in the mind-body realm. Most of the visits the doctors get these days are in this realm. They're having a problem here. Why are they having a problem? They have the best life. What is annoying their mind? What is giving them all this discomfort at hand? It's the absence of what we call an ideology that fills them from within with satisfaction and acceptance and contentment. Look what the Quran says in that regard. And whosoever abandons the remembrance of the most merciful, indeed shall lead a miserable life. And what will happen to him? He will be resurrected on the day of judgment blind. He will say, oh Allah, why did you resurrect me blind and I was able to see in this world? Look what the answer comes. The answer says, indeed our signs came to you and you rejected it and turned your heart away from it. كَذَلِكَ أَتَتْكَ آيَاتُنَا فَنَسِيتَهَا وَكَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. Because you turned against it, you didn't want to know it. But it was there in front of you and you were able to see it, but you turned against it. Number 4, so I can skim through it quickly. An aid to the progress of science and knowledge, contrary to common belief that religion comes to hinder scientific progress or knowledge. Religion, with its firm and sound teachings, can be an effective factor in scientific progress because its foundation has been laid on the solid bedrock of freedom of will and on the fact that everybody is accountable for his own deeds. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, in Surah Al-Muddathir, everyone is entangled in the outcome of his deeds. that limitless knowledge is the source of this cosmos, which is like a very grand book penned by an erudite scholar, where every page, every line, and every word of it contains a glaring truth which stimulates us to further study and contemplation. This attitude towards the cosmos undoubtedly stimulates persistent thinking over the mechanism of creation and consequently helps in the advancement of science and knowledge. In contrast, if we hold that this universe is the product of sheer mechanical factors having no intellect, there remains no plausible reason why we should make strenuous efforts to discover its secrets. Do you understand the point? If this world came about by itself, why do we need to discover it then and know how it came about in the first place? Right? It doesn't make sense. Khalas, believe in it. You are already saying it came out of nothing. There was no creator. It was these cells that produced themselves, and mashallah, it came into being. Well, that's it. And man evolved. Right? Then why do you go and explore it? Why do you know? Why do you want to know its secrets? When Allah refers to that very point, He says, "Qul siru," go, travel the earth and the heaven, and ponder on the creation of this world, and see and explore the mysteries that Allah has put into it. If it was the product of sheer mechanical factors, having no intellect, and this world has no intellect, just came about, there remains no plausible reason after that why we should make strenuous efforts to discover its secrets. In principle, a universe which is the outcome of the working of an unconscious machinery can neither be well designed nor mysterious in itself. If there was no one behind it, it cannot be a product which is so well designed and mysterious. If it came by itself, it will never be well designed and it will never be mysterious. And I was speaking to one of our doctors here, and he told me something. I mentioned this last time, but I'll mention it because it's very appropriate to mention it here. Astronomers today are saying, if you look at the world, after they studied the Big Bang, and the theory that the world is now expanding, where it will come to a time where the world will shrink again. That's the previous thought, that the world is now expanding, but it will come to a point where what? Where it will shrink again. But modern scientists today say that is not true. The world keeps expanding. Subhanallah. And they say because the world keeps expanding in that way, it must have had a blueprint. Do you know what a blueprint is? Yeah, it must have been designed before it came into being. The question is, who designed it? Now the scientists are trying to find the designer. Subhanallah. Certainly he's not going to be Yves Saint Laurent. Or he's not going to be Gianni Versace. Or he's not going to be any of these designers, because that designer is immaculate. He has put a blueprint before, because as Imam Ali said, what did he say, Doctor? علم بما كان قبل أن يكون. علم بما كان قبل أن يكون. Allah knew about everything before it came into being. That's the blueprint that Allah had. That He knew everything before it came into existence, and then He put it into existence. That's why it is mysterious, and that's why it is immaculate. You don't find fault in the universe or the creation of Allah. Apart from giving a deadly blow to the advancement of science and knowledge, such conception of cosmos negates the very fact that man's instinct is basically rooted in religion. Albert Einstein was very true when he pointed out why great thinkers and discoverers are all interested in religion. He said that it was hard to find anyone among the great thinking brains of the world who may not have a sort of religious feeling peculiar to him. That feeling was different look at this statement, different from the religion of the man in the street. Because the religion of the man in the street is the religion of dogmas. But the religion of someone who has a brain and thinks about the world is the religion of someone that his heart is linked to a creator that is very peculiar in the way he created things. And that's how he relates to him from the basis of knowledge. It has the form of a delightful wonder at the marvelously accurate system of the universe, which from time to time unveils secrets in comparison with which all organized human thinking and research are rather weak or stale to understand. This feeling illuminates the path of life and affords a scientist as he gains success and honor. It keeps him free from the dead weight of selfishness and pride. When you go out to discover this universe, you don't discover it for promotion of the self. No, you discover it for the benefit of others. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminded us from day one, from ayah 1, when you want to learn, don't learn for your self-promotion, but learn for Allah. He said, "Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq." Don't iqra in the name of promotion and haughtiness and arrogance and a certificate at the end of graduation that says you are something this and something that, so you pride yourself in front of people. No. Iqra in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you serve the servants of Allah. That's your duty. What I believe in the system of the universe, and what a fascinating desire it was, he adds, that enabled Kepler and Newton to suffer for years in isolation and in complete silence in order to simplify and explain the laws of gravitation and planetary motion. No doubt it is this very religious feeling that these are the words of who? Albert Einstein. I haven't quoted it. He's saying this about Kepler and Newton. And tell what? He says it is this very religious feeling in the heart of Kepler and Newton that enabled the self-sacrificing and self-effacing men through long centuries, in spite of their apparent defeats and failures, to rise on their feet again and make a fresh effort to discover the mysteries of this world. The contemporary scientist Abalethi says that science for its own perfection should regard faith in God as one of its accepted principles. Where are those who say that most scientists are atheists? Where are they? They say they haven't read about Abalethi, who is a modern scientist, who himself says as a scientist to other scientists. What does he say to them? He says that science for its own perfection, if science wants to perfect itself, what should it do? It should regard faith in God as one of its accepted principles. Thus, religious man or a religious man following the true teaching of religion can more than anybody else carry out research and discover the secrets of the nature of this universe. Number 5, what religion and the faith in these 5 principles of Islam provide you with fights against discrimination. Religion strongly opposes every discrimination based on color, race, class, or gender, because it regards all human beings as Allah's creatures and every country as God's country. According to this, all enjoy without any doubt the following privileges. All enjoy God's love and kindness equally, as such all are equals in the eyes of Allah. According to the teaching of Islam, no man can be superior to another man on the basis of his color, race, descent, language, or class. Islam recognizes only piety and knowledge as the touchstone of superiority. The Quran said, "O mankind, we have created you from a male and a female, and we have divided you into nations and tribes, so that you may get to know one another. Surely the most honorable of you in the sight of Allah is he who is most pious." Surah Al-Hujurat, ayah 13. Thus, the role of religion in a world that has not yet been able even to solve the color problem is indeed very vital and important. Number 6, and I conclude, religion and individual freedom. Some people think that religion restricts individual freedom and disallows the fulfillment of some desires, whereas in fact the aim of religious teachings is not at all to put an end to logical freedom. Its aim is only to stop wastage of human energies and assets and to prevent their flow into improper and worthless channels. For example, if religion forbids the use of intoxicants, gambling, and improper indulgence in sex, does so for the safety of the body and the soul of the individual and for the maintenance of social order in the society that we are living in. This moral control is in keeping with the real spirit of freedom, for freedom means that man should be able to take full advantage of the assets of existence to help in the evolution of the individual and the society that he lives in. It does not at all mean squandering of God-given energies and indulging in immoderation and libertism, يعني إباحية, as they say in Arabic. Religion supports every kind of freedom that carries man forward towards evolution in various fields, whether social, economic, family, or science. Only this is what freedom in the real sense means. Anything else is labeled as libertinism. That is why religion allows man to use all good things in life, to wear any reasonable dress, to relish any good food, and to take part in any healthy pastime. In short, it has allowed the use of all comforts and conveniences of life and does not ask anyone to give up any such privileges. The Quran says, say, O Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Say to these people that I've sent you on to, who has forbidden the beautiful things of Allah which He has produced for His servants and the pure food. Moreover, our religion calls upon us to never forget the exigencies and requirements of time and to keep ourselves well informed about the latest development in medicine, technology and industry. Imam As-Sadiq salawatullahi salamu alayhi says, he who knows his time, look at this hadith, and I will conclude, he who knows his time and its requirement shall not be taken unaware by the dark events of life. Subhanallah. He will not be taken away or unaware or red-handed by the dark events of life. And finally the Holy Quran says, give glad tidings to my servants who listen to what is said and follow the best thereof. They are those whom God has guided and those who have good sense and ponder over what Allah wants them to ponder over. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in conclusion make us among those who would only listen to what is best. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. Question? Any questions, any answers? Or did I confuse you? No. Okay. Yes?
What was the name of the scientist who said?
Abernathy. You want his testament? I'll give you the spelling of his name. Sorry, because I closed the lecture. No, I'll give it to you. Since we're not doing anything.
Giving people
Yeah.
time to think.
Yes. It's Abernethy. Are you Googling now?
No, no, I'm just.
No, go in so you can see I'm saying the truth.
No, no, no. It's just a reference back.
يعني أنا أتكلم عربي، محاولة جدا جيدة.
تفضل.
بس يعني المفروض يعني تقرأنا الآية القرآنية. يعني
بالعربي؟
بالعربي حتى نقرأ القرآن. يعني
تلتفتون إلها.
حتى يعني.
إن شاء الله.
يعني حتى نقول حتى الأحاديث يعني مو الأحاديث يعني من الإمام الصادق.
بالعربي وبالإنجليزي.
إيه بالعربي حتى يعني تشرحها بالإنجليزي.
على راسي.
شكرا.
إن شاء الله. في المتن إن شاء الله. Yes, brother. Siddiq.
The Quran has, it's a book that has many, it talks about many things.
Yes.
In regards to laws,
Yes.
society laws,
Mm.
there is, the Western world doesn't agree with, say, concepts like equality between man and woman
Yes.
in regards to heritage.
Yeah.
They think that we are more biased
Towards men.
Yes, towards men. So I'm thinking, societies sometimes they develop laws that is complements their time.
Okay.
So as we age older and older civilization, new laws come, new challenges. Are the laws of the Quran? I don't doubt that the supreme wisdom of Allah is in everything. Are they universal, or does this mean that sometimes the Arabs in those days they wouldn't have been acceptable? It would have been impossible to implement the laws from this time and that time. Can we? Is our laws? Can we improve them?
Are the laws of Islam changeable, or are they? As I can use the word stagnant, they don't move, they don't change. Yes. Not everything about Islam is fixed. All right? There are laws in Islam that can move with the change of time. For example, we have laws which are called ta'zir. Ta'zir, there's something between had and which the governor, for example, has the right, according to the time he's living in, to set his own penalty in reference to that particular issue or problem. Okay? So this, if you want to call it grey area, I don't like it a grey area, because what Allah is referring to it as an area that fits your own time, then you are at liberty to develop laws in accordance to that particular time when that incident comes into place, right? Because not everything may have come into place prior. So the Islam sets general guideline rules that are unchangeable and allows room in different areas where they will come a time where they will develop as a result, and gives the liberty to the person in charge of power to set the appropriate designated rule in that regard. But when we talk about authority, we are not talking about authority of someone that comes and appoints himself as an authority. Do you understand? And not everyone that says, this is an Islamic government, I'm going to rule by Islam, these are the laws. No, you are not fit to do that unless you have some sort of infallibility to you, okay, that you will understand the law as the law wants its application to be, right? Not through my own desires and my own, for example, like some scholars who begin to give certain fatwas that suits the administration or the government of the time, right? In order to justify the legitimacy of the action through some sort of religious authority, right? That is not possible. And that's why we say that it is important to always go back to the original of religion based on the teachings of the Prophet and the infallible Imams, and no one else, because everyone else has the capability of formulating laws on the basis of his own thinking by reason of analogy, and that's where he may go wrong. Such as when, for example, Imam al-Sadiq debated with a great scholar of his time, Abu Hanifa, and he told him, "Oh Abu Hanifa, religion is not derived on the basis of analogy, right? be more appropriate than wiping it from above. ما هي؟ احنا بنمسح على القدم من فوق ومن تحت. هو الأفضل تمسح من تحت by analogy. Right? So he told them religion is not by analogy. Religion is by extrapolating laws that are based on God's intent, not your intent. And in order to free people from confusion, that's where we say that an infallible imam's ruling on an issue is of paramount importance. Or at least someone that can represent him to a degree where he says, after I have extrapolated and exhausted my life potential in studying the Quran, the traditions of the Prophet and AhlulBayt, and then the consensus of the previous scholars, and then I've used my reason and intelligence, then I arrive at that particular opinion, which I feel it could be an interpretation of what God intended, but I don't say it is what God intended, right? Yeah. So in that way, yes, definitely there are areas where Islam is more than happy to accommodate development of laws according to the time we live in, but not on the standards of laws. Yeah, there are laws that are standard unchangeable.
For example, what about when it comes to inheritance? Because that is certain, the Quran and the Nas very clear about that.
Well, the question now is when we have a clean text, Nas, of the Quran that speaks about the inheritance. Is really the inheritance a law that is gender biased? More biased towards men than females? No, if you look at it from an Islamic comprehensive point of view, because when you look at a law in Islam, you don't look at a law in absence of its wholesomeness, in absence of the totality of the law. For example, now we know that a woman will take half as a man. Right? That's the law. But the man pays the dowry. Right? The man spends on the father and the mother if they need his help. Right? The man is the one who is in charge of maintenance of his wife. Right? So when he's taking 1 to half, he's spending the whole 1 on the woman again through the dowry and the maintenance. Right? So that enables him to spend even more on the woman, not because he is favored over the woman, not in that context. But when you look at the Quran, are biased. Biased because you are looking at the law in absence of its wholesomeness. Right? And if I tell you now, for example, what would you prefer, a curved line or a straight line? What would you say?
Straight line.
But if I told you that this straight line is going to be your eyebrow, you're going to say curved, right? Because now you're looking in context. You're looking at the whole picture, right? So that's how Islamic law has to be looked at, in the whole picture, and not as an isolated law. You look at it, it's biased. No, because Islam compels you to such a degree that وَإِذَا آتَيْتُمْ إِحْدَاهُنَّ قِنْطَارًا فَلَا تَأْخُذُوا مِنْهُ شَيْئًا. If you give your wife a mountain load of gold, don't come and claim it back from her. And some men do. Not because religion has a problem, because the man himself is finding a loophole when religion does not suit him to play his game and deny his wife her right. Well, I say to men like this, that if you deny your wife her right to a dowry, right? Wallah, according to the ahadith of the Prophet and AhlulBayt, your feet on the Day of Judgment will not move an inch until you pay her haq back. If you can't afford it in monetary value because there are no credit cards on the Day of Judgment, the American Express or Visa card is not going to work, alright? You're going to pay her from your own deeds. So just in passing. Let's do it.
May I add more to this question?
Yes.
That people say, why do I take another woman?
Yes.
Islam allows you to give equally by this way.
Yes.
Suppose you have a boy and a girl of your children.
Yes.
And you have $1 million, for example. You can make a will, give your daughter a quarter of your money.
Yes.
In the 3 quarters, we divide it into Islam. Result will be that your daughter will get exactly like yourself.
You know why I said that?
Exactly because you are free to give a third of your money to
Estate.
life.
That's right.
So you can make equality between them by your own choice.
So those who want to argue, for example, that it's not fair, we say, but the father is at liberty to equalize it because God has given him that right. You know, where every person has that third of his estate, and mind you, the beauty about Islam is that that third has to be taken out first before the division of the inheritance. Not after, so it will reduce, no, before you take that 1/3 and then you start dividing whatever. So if that 1/3 is already given to the girl, I gotta take it. And if she's gonna take not 1.5 more than the boy, for example.
I wasn't questioning.
You have the right to question it. You have the right. Because if you don't question it, how are you going to understand it? It's normal. You know? The other thing about the Islamic law, which is also important to understand, is that the application of the inheritance law can be done while the father is alive. Yeah, for example, during his life, if he gave equal share to both men and women, before he died and he left no wealth, it's also possible. Yani he divides his tharwa before his death. But I know so many people. Once a man came to me, he came to ask one of my colleagues, he's a sheikh, he said, I want to divide my tharwa, my assets, my money, before I die. So the sheikh said, why do you want to do this? He said, my children now are fighting. Can you imagine if I die? Ya Ammi, let them be brothers before I die. I'll give every one of them money. He said, let them remember me with Fatiha at least after I die. They don't have nothing to fight about. You know? So you have room. If you're talking about room and scope, the proper word, there is plenty of scope to apply in that regard. Yes.